going to start off with our lasagna today. Before we get started with our different recipes and stuff, I want to go over and just show you a few things, a few storage ideas. And the lasagna that we're making tonight, we're going to be making it in this pan right here. I've already got one in the oven, and it is cooking right along where it was. All right, and we're going to get it going here in just a second. We're going to make our lasagna in this one. This is more of about a 4-serving portion. If you want to, you can make your lasagnas in these little ones. This is kind of a 2-serving portion. For me, it'd be 1. I could sit down and eat that whole thing in lasagna. This might even be 1 on a hungry day. I don't know. And then, of course, our lasagna pans that we sell down here. And the great thing about these is you can make them ahead of time like what we're talking about tonight, and that's the whole purpose of tonight. The recipes are not anything really special as far as special ingredients that you can freeze or anything like that. It's just some general ideas of some things that you can go ahead and make ahead of time and freeze and pull out in 2 portions or 4 portions or a whole pan if you're having a party over or something. These are really neat little containers. All these are a Food Club brand. And they're a really thick freezer bowl. They have twist-on lids. They're really good for our soups and our chilies like what we're doing today. You could even put lasagna in it if you wanted to make it ahead of time and wanted to freeze some leftovers, you could do that. And then, of course, we have our freezer bags. There's a couple of different kinds of freezer bags. I prefer the regular freezer bags with the press zip on it where you actually take your finger and you press it and you can feel it seal. But we also have these that are called zipper freezer bags. And the reason I don't like for these is the more parts you've had, I've always been told, the more chance that something could go wrong. I've seen this little blue piece pop off. I've actually had blueberries one time that had cooked into just like a blueberry compote and put it in the freezer, and the little blue thing popped off. It opened up and went all over the freezer. I didn't know about it till the next morning. I kind of stay away from these a little bit, but if you prefer these, we have these as an option too. So these are just some ideas of some things that we have that you can use to freeze with. I like to take a Saturday and do this myself. A lot of people have different days they do different things on. Saturdays, when I get home from work, if I have to work that day, I'll generally take the evening and sit down and think about what are we going to have for lunch this week or what are we going to have for supper this week. And I can take a Saturday evening and make up 5 or 6 things that you can put in the freezer. And boy, during the week, I'm like, boy, I'm glad I did that. You know, it's so much easier to pull something out of the freezer, and it's good, it's fresh. I mean, yes, it's frozen, but it's fresh. I mean, you just made it on Saturday, and even if you wait till the following Saturday to eat it, it's still fresh. I mean, and it's really good. And like she said, on the back of your recipe booklet that you have, you can see some different ideas of time lengths that you can keep certain things frozen. I just want to put that in there. One thing I want to tell you too is freezing food does not kill bacteria. Now you'll see that in your little pamphlet. I think I included that in there. Freezing food will not kill bacteria. That means if you have chicken or turkey or beef or something and you freeze it and it's raw, it does not kill bacteria. All freezing food does is keep that bacteria dormant. The actual heat is what kills the bacteria. So don't think that because, well, this has been in the freezer and it's been frozen, that there's no bacteria or nothing in it and I don't have to cook it as long or I don't need to cook it as well. Yeah, you do. Freezing, when things start to thaw out, it just kind of reactivates things that have been frozen. So be sure you cook it just as long as you would normally in order to help with that. Before we get started with our actual recipe, do you have any questions about anything that you've had attempted to freeze or anything like that hasn't worked out or maybe has? What causes freezer burn? Air. Yeah. With what we're talking about for a week long, we really don't have to worry about freezer burn all that much because it's not in the freezer long enough. When you get up into the couple of weeks or the month or a couple of months, you really do. And that is the big thing. You want to suck all the air you can out of the packages. When you do these lasagnas, if you know it's going to be in there for a couple of months or whatever, be sure you put your saran wrap or whatever you're covering it with really tight down on top of it and then cover it again. And that way you'll be sure to not necessarily cure freezer burn, but eliminate it somewhat. So a lot of stuff, you see these commercials talking about how much food we throw away because of freezer burn, and we do. And a lot of it's because we forget it's in our freezers also. I'm a big advocate for marking when it was made and what it is. When me and my wife were first married, I remember putting stuff in the freezer and I thought, well, I'll know what that is when I see the package. And it's wrapped in aluminum foil. And we had mystery suppers for a while because whatever got pulled out of the freezer and then we thawed out, that's what we fixed because we really didn't know what was wrapped up. So you can take a Sharpie and a piece of masking tape and put it on there if it's aluminum foil, and you can write on it. You can put your date on it. Ladies, she's getting you some chairs right now and we'll get you situated. And we're going to go ahead and get started. And we've been waiting on these ladies right here to get here. So we're going to go ahead and get started and with our lasagna today. Like I said, we're going to use our pan here. This is about a 4-serving pan. We're going to take this, and first thing we're going to do is I've made up a mixture of some stuff, and I want to read through with you. The reason I've made it ahead of time is, folks, when you're making this, it has to be warm because it has turkey and other ingredients in it. And when you make it ahead of time, to put it in the refrigerator and let it cool down a little bit, because you don't need to put it on your noodles when it's really warm. The reason being is it needs time to set up a little bit. It needs time to get thickened a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over a recipe a little bit and get down to the point to where we're assembling that. In this one, it says use a 13 by 9-inch 3-quart glass baking dish. That is a recipe. You can freeze it in it, folks, but if you freeze it in something that's glass, you need to set it out and put it to room temperature before you stick it in the oven, for the simple reason if you put frozen glass in a hot oven, what's going to happen? It's going to break. So that's really why I like these. There's no chance of breaking. When you get done with these, you eat what you want. You send the rest with somebody if you got guests. If you don't have guests and you eat everything in it, you throw it away or recycle it. And it's so much easier to clean up that way. So, but we're going to use our aluminum pan today. And we're going to talk about what we added. Now, it says here add chicken. And in your recipe, you'll see it calls for chicken breast. In what I've made tonight, I've used chicken thighs. I've used boneless, skinless chicken thighs. The reason I use chicken thighs is, you may agree or you may disagree, but I think thighs have more flavor than breast. I really do. They're a juicier piece of meat. Yeah, it's got a little bit of fat on it. Even the boneless, skinless have a little bit of fat on it. But as I've told you before, and as we know from just learning, fat has flavor, or fat is flavor. So that's what causes. There's not enough in it really to bother anything, because like I said, the skin and the bones and everything have been removed. And then we're going to cook it until it's just about all the way done, and we're going to add we're going to cook it till it's done, and we're going to add our peppers, our celery, our onions, and our garlic, and we're going to cook it about 2 minutes. And what you want to happen when you cook this for about 2 minutes is you want it to become translucent. You're not going to cook them hard. You're not going to cook them till they get crisp or brown. You just want to get them till they're really translucent. They've started to sweat. And one thing you do to that, folks, is add a little bit of salt. Now, what the salt does, it helps draw the moisture out of the vegetables when you're cooking these. It doesn't have to be a lot. It can just be a pinch for a lot of vegetables. But that salt, that sodium, is going to help to pull out the moisture out of those vegetables and help them to sweat a little bit better. And you're going to stir all this, and you're going to cook it till the chicken is no longer pink. We have talked about the safety of chicken over and over and over and over again, and I tell you again tonight, be careful when you're dealing with chicken as far as cross-contamination. Using utensils that you cut chicken with, don't do it. Don't cut anything else. Have a cutting board, have a knife, any utensil that you're going to use with raw chicken, dedicate that when you're cooking to raw chicken. And that way you can be able to prevent cross-contamination on that. And then what we're going to do is we would turn our heat down. We're going to add our half and half, our chicken broth, our cream cheese, and we're going to cook it till the cream cheese is melted. This is a rich, Jessica was back there when I was cooking this. I don't know. Jessica was back there when I was cooking this earlier, and she said, boy, that smells good, and it sounds rich, and it really is. It's an idea that we were talking about earlier that you can use for parties. You can freeze them in a big pan like this. This is one of our, how do I say, I don't want to say fancier dishes. I guess it is. It's a very rich, it's something that you wouldn't want to eat every day, folks, because it's got a lot of cheese. It's a heavy. You can see this. I don't know if you can see it up above or not, but you can see in the bowl here. It is almost like an Alfredo sauce that you're using to make this lasagna out of. And it's got a lot of vegetables in it. It's really good. It's got a lot of garlic and stuff in it. And then you want to melt this until the cream cheese is melted. And then you want to start adding your Gouda cheese. How many people like Gouda cheese? We made macaroni and cheese up here one time with Screaming Dutchman Gouda cheese. You remember that? You weren't here. Well, we're going to use something kind of like it today. This is by the same people that make the Screaming Dutchman Gouda cheese. This is a smoked Gouda with bacon. Our cameraman over there talked about the night that he came up here and we were doing bacon, that this is where he eats supper at. He was eating all that bacon. So this is a smoked Gouda with bacon. And you can use this. You can use cheddar cheese. You can use all kinds of different cheeses in it. I like Gouda for a couple of reasons. One, it melts real creamy. It's really easy to use. It's something that some of the harder cheeses, like the harder cheddars and different things, you have to really wait on it to melt. Parmesan's really good as a finishing, and we're going to use some Parmesan in a minute. But as far as getting it to melt, you really have to work with it because it's a hard cheese and it's hard by nature. So you want to go ahead and put your Gouda cheese in. I just grated some Gouda cheese up and I put in there. And then you're going to stir it till it melts, and then you're going to set it aside. And the reason I said earlier that we set it aside is what? We want it to set up. We want it to be able to, when you put it in your lasagna, we don't want it just to run and kind of be a mess. You want it something that's kind of stable where you can just spread it out like a cheese mixture. And our oven just said, hey, I'm working, so that's good. And you want it to be able to spread out like that. So I'm going to go ahead and go through it mixing with you, but before I do, we got a cottage cheese mixture here too. And you can see in this cottage cheese mixture, there's a little bit of orange in this one. It's not called for in your recipe. I added just a little bit of cheddar cheese to it, just to show you kind of a variety of what you can do. It's not rocket science, so I encourage you to use your imagination. Cook what you like and what you like to eat, cook it, and it'll be all right. So what you do is you mix the cottage cheese and a quarter cup of fresh basil. That sounds like a lot, but when you're dealing with fresh basil, it'll wilt down and it'll be really good in there because you're going to be doing a lot of lasagna with this. And 1 egg, and the egg is a binder. The egg is when you put it in there and you mix it up with your cottage cheese and stuff, it's a binder to kind of hold everything together. When you use basil, let me go back just a little bit, and you use dry basil, do you use more or less than you would fresh? Right, less. Do not put a quarter cup of dried basil in your lasagna. I promise you, you will not be able to eat it. It'll be so strong with basil. That's all you will taste is basil. For a quarter cup, I use dry basil today, strangely enough, because I went down to get fresh basil in our produce department and we didn't have any. That's the first time that I've ever seen that happen. So I use dry basil, and I use about 2 tablespoons in this mixture. And it's a whole big difference, but it's dried, it's concentrated, and has a lot more flavor concentrated into it. So we're going to go ahead and get started with our layering. You can layer this in any way. There's a kind of a rhythm here in this recipe. I'm going to show you how I would do it. One of the things that I'm using is our oven-ready lasagna. We're going to be using the oven-ready lasagna today. And the reason I like this is, obviously, it's a lot easier. It's cooked, and then it is it's dried, and it's a softer. And when you add it to moisture, and if you leave it sitting on the counter long enough, folks, one thing you're going to see is that it'll start curling. And the reason it starts curling is it even will draw the moisture out of the air into this. So and it affects the lasagna. So once you open it up, I recommend going ahead and using it because it's kind of a beast to work with. If you don't go ahead and start using it, because it will start curling up and you'll try to get it to lay flat and you'll break it all up and everything. But it is really a good product to use. I know people that use regular lasagna noodles and don't cook them. Especially when you're making it ahead like this. What's happening is you're putting your lasagna noodles in and they're soaking up the moisture around them. So if you're freezing it, it's going to have an awful lot of time to be soaking up the moistures and stuff. What I want to do is go ahead with our mixture, and you can see it's a pretty thick mixture. You can see the peppers and all that in there. I'm just going to take about 1/3 of a cup and I'm just going to spread it around the bottom. This first layer that you're doing here, Some people would say, why don't you just go ahead and put your noodle in the bottom as a base because it's a dry ingredient. This is going to act kind of like a glue, and it's also going to act as a binder to keep your noodles to lay down so you can work with them a little bit better. This pan we're using today, you can see, it fits just about perfect in there. And what I do is I take one and I overlap it. And then I'm going to take my cottage cheese mixture next. And I'm going to spread a thin layer across my lasagna noodles. And the reason I do this next is because if I put my sauce on top of the noodles, and then I try to spread my cottage cheese on it, it'd be really hard to do because your sauce would be allowing your cottage cheese mixture to move around an awful lot. So we're just going to paint just a thin layer on here. It doesn't take a lot. You've got a lot of cheese that's already in your mixture here. And then we're going to take some fresh mozzarella. I have two different kinds of cheeses here just to show you. This is a pepper jack cheese. I like it. I'll tell you something else you can do. If you like pepperoni, does anybody like the big slice pepperoni like we sell down in the deli? When you're making things like this, one of the things that my family really enjoys is take a layer of that big thick slice, or not thick slice, but the big round pepperoni and slice it real thin and lay you a layer of that pepperoni in with your lasagna. Especially when you're doing a red sauce lasagna, it's really good. That pepperoni, we sell it down there, it's made by Hormel, I believe, and you can get it sliced really thin, and it just gives it an all new flavor. My son, when he likes it, he asks for the pizza lasagna. He always wants us to have the pizza lasagna when we're eating lasagna, and that's why I just put a layer of pepperoni in it, and with that. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go ahead and lay a layer of this mozzarella. This is a pre-sliced mozzarella that we sell over in our dairy section. We're going to lay it down, and then we're going to add onto that another layer of our sauce. Now this time I'm going to get a little bit more. I'm probably going to put about a cup on top, and we're going to spread it out evenly just to the sides of the pan. And this will be all right. I did make a mistake. Can anybody tell me what it is? I did it just to see if you all could figure out what I did wrong. What did I do wrong? Nah? No, the chicken's in there. I did something very simple that's going to make things difficult on us later. Nope, I didn't spray the pan. I didn't spray my pan. Oh, see? Nobody caught that. I could have went by and not said a thing and you all would have never known. The one that's in the oven has been sprayed, and I just used a release spray, a vegetable spray on that, and you can use any kind that you would like to use. I would stay away from, we have some products down there now. There's a release spray that it has flour in it. It's for baking. I wouldn't use anything like that. It would give your lasagna kind of a floury taste to that. So we're going to go ahead and just going to make our layers out. In a minute, we're going to do our chicken chili, and I'm going to go. That's actually our turkey chili. We'll go ahead and turn that on and get it going. And we're also going to be doing an Italian vegetable soup. And I want to share that with you all. And the great thing, the reason I'm doing these soups and lasagna today is these are super easy. This minestrone that we're making, it is a super easy thing to freeze. And there's a couple of different stages to it. There's a couple of different things that we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and make a base for it. And then after we make our base for it, we're going to freeze that. And then when you pull it out, you can add other stuff to it. So what I've done is I went ahead and made our base, and then we're going to add some other stuff to that here in just a second and get it going. We're going to do about one more layer of this is all we're going to do. And the reason for that is when you're freezing stuff, you want to leave some head space. For the simple reason that if you put something like this in your freezer and you don't leave any head space, when it starts freezing, it's going to expand. And when it expands, it will come out of your pan, and it might make a mess that way too. So If it's ever could be made into a mess, I've done it. And I'm one of these people that learn by experience, so I have experienced it. So on this last layer, we're going to add just a little bit more of our sauce. You can see the chunks of chicken in there. And we're just going to spread it over liberally over top of our lasagna noodles. And we're going to just leave it just a little bit in our pan. And the last thing we're going to do is we're going to put one more layer of our mozzarella. This is just like mozzarella that you would use. This is not a fresh mozzarella. This is just like a mozzarella that you would use on pizza or anything else. It's just sliced instead of being shredded. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the remaining of our sauce and we're just going to pour it right on top. And we're going to spread it out over our cheese. And why would I spread this out on top of the cheese instead of putting the pretty cheese on top? Because by the time this gets done, if you just lift that cheese on top, it would burn. It would be brown. This is giving you some moisture over top of your cheese and it's protecting it. And the cheese that we're going to use for our topping is a shredded Parmesan. And then we're just going to put just a little thin layer over top of it. Just enough to make it pretty, enough to give it a little bit of taste. And this, when you get ready to serve it, this is a great thing to serve on the side with your lasagna, is this grated Parmesan. You can use it also. So I want to show you one quick thing as we get done putting this together. When you go to bake your lasagna, when you go to actually store your lasagna, one of the things I want to show you is this. And you may not think that this will work. Some of you I know have seen this before and know that it does work. And the first thing you gotta do is be able to get your saran wrap off the roll. And with these gloves on, it's hard to do sometimes. Alrighty. So we're gonna go ahead and take some of this off. Our little, there we go. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this in the oven right now. But before I do that, I'm going to wrap it in saran wrap. Okay, I'm going to teach you something. I'm going to take it, and I'm not going to wrap it around the bottom, because what will happen is it'll melt, it'll burn, and then your oven will smell like saran wrap when you pull it out. But then I'm going to take aluminum foil, and I'm going to put it over top of it. And what happens is the moisture that's in your lasagna is going to make your saran wrap, it will stick to your aluminum foil instead of to your lasagna, and it won't burn it. And what you're doing is you're actually keeping the moisture in your lasagna. It's some kind of scientific thing. The only thing I know is it's like fusion. Your saran wrap is going to fuse to your aluminum foil, and it helps hold the moisture in a little bit better. And so when you want to pull your saran wrap up and make sure it's up underneath your aluminum foil. Just go all the way around and crimp it all the way around on, and then you can freeze it like this. You stick it in, write your date on it, freeze it, put it in the freezer, it'll be great. Or you can just stick it straight in the oven. And that is your white chicken lasagna, and it is really good. I made this for my family for the very first time this past weekend because I saw the recipe and I thought I really want to try this. And I made it for my family. My family gets to be your all's guinea pigs, so you are not the first one to ever get to try this when I do new recipes. Now I want to show you something. Remember I told you about the lasagna? Yeah. See the moisture has already started. You need to use it just as soon as you can with that. You can store this. The best place to store it after it's been opened is in the refrigerator, wrapped in a zippy bag. You know what a zippy bag is? That's like mean heat. A Ziploc bag that you put it in, it'll keep the moisture out of it. And lasagna is like butter, is like cheese, is like a lot of other things. If you put it in the refrigerator, it will absorb the flavors that are around it. So be sure you put it in an airtight container. Is there any questions about what we did? Any questions about storing it? So you pull it out of your freezer, and what's the first thing you're going to do? Turn your oven on. What else? You're going to let it thaw out. You're going to let it thaw out for a little bit. You don't want to put it in frozen. because if you put it in frozen, it is going to take a lot longer to cook, and you run more of a chance of burning it once you put it in frozen. You need to let it thaw out. It don't have to come to room temperature, but it does need to all thaw all the way through where it is soft. And what that does too is it's allowing your noodles to reconstitute once you put the moisture on them using these noodles like this.